Revenge on my neighbor who tried to kill me. A masterful payback. 15 years ago, my wife and I made the decision to move to the countryside. We had spent years living in the city, constantly bombarded with the chaos of urban life, and we longed for peace and simplicity. The countryside promised serenity, vast stretches of land, clear blue skies, and the kind of quiet that allowed one to hear their own thoughts. We found the perfect home, nestled deep in the country, and felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment as we settled in. Our new neighbor seemed friendly, and life was good, or so we thought. A year into our new life, my wife became pregnant with our first child. It was an exciting time, filled with anticipation and dreams of the future. However, pregnancy, as any expecting mother can attest, is no walk in the park. As my wife's belly grew, so did her discomfort. Her feet swelled, her back ached, and exhaustion became her constant companion. Despite the physical strain, she remained cheerful and eager to welcome our baby into the world. At the time, I traveled periodically for work. One evening, while I was out of town, my wife decided to take a relaxing soak in the tub. The warm water was a relief to her swollen feet, and for a moment, she felt at peace. But that peace was short-lived. Our neighbor's dog, a large breed with an earth-shaking bark, began barking incessantly. The barking wasn't just a few minutes of noise. It went on, a relentless, piercing sound that made relaxation impossible. For over 30 minutes, the dog barked nonstop, and my wife, already at her wit's end with pregnancy hormones running wild, snapped. She climbed out of the tub, threw on her bathrobe, stormed to the front door, and screamed at the top of her lungs for our neighbor to shut their dog up. It was a moment of raw frustration. But unfortunately, it triggered something much worse than a simple neighborly dispute. The neighbors did not take kindly to my wife's outburst. Instead of addressing their dog behavior, they went full-on redneck in retaliation. It started with petty things, changing their Wi-Fi name to "I love barking dogs" in an attempt to mock us. That was mildly annoying, but we shrugged it off. However, their antics escalated quickly into outright vandalism. One evening, I arrived home from work to find my wife outside, picking up debris from our driveway. As I got closer, I saw what she was holding: makeshift nail traps, hastily constructed and scattered across our driveway. These were designed to puncture tires, and if I hadn't seen my wife cleaning them up, I might have driven right over them. I was livid. Who does that? Who goes out of their way to cause potential harm over something so trivial? But the worst was yet to come. The following morning, I left for work as usual. As I drove, I noticed something was off. My brakes felt odd, not as responsive as they should be. By the time I reached the interstate, the brake pedal felt spongy, almost useless. Alarm bells went off in my head. I pulled into a truck stop and inspected my vehicle. What I found made my blood run cold. The petcock valve on my front right brake caliper had been loosened, allowing my brake fluid to drain out. If I had continued driving, my brakes could have failed entirely on the highway at high speeds. This wasn't just some childish prank. This was an attempt on my life. Fury doesn't begin to describe what I felt in that moment. They had crossed a line. It was no longer about a barking dog or a Wi-Fi name. This was an attack, a deliberate and dangerous act that could have left me seriously injured or worse. But rather than confront them outright, I decided to get my revenge in a way that would truly make them suffer. I work in the IT field. Technology is my domain, and I know my way around security. I had an old laptop that I repurposed for the task at hand. Using software designed for penetration testing, I cracked into their Wi-Fi network. From there, the possibilities were endless. I started small, just a toy with them. I sent random print jobs to their printer, emails that seemed to be from another woman, sent to the husband, love letters, intimate confessions. I can only imagine the argument that must have erupted in their household when those prints came through. But I didn't stop there. I also printed explicit images, leaving them for the wife to discover. I envisioned her finding them and wondering what kind of secrets her husband was hiding. The paranoia, the anger, it must have been deliciously chaotic in their home. Then I took a step further. Online, I found a service that connected prison inmates with pen pals. I signed the wife up for one of these programs, carefully crafting a letter that seemed personal and heartfelt. I included just enough details about their lives to make it convincing, how long they had been married, what the husband did for a living, their kids, their dog. I made sure the inmate believed he had found a real connection. Then I sat back and waited. Weeks passed, and my wife and I lived our lives as usual. But across the property line, things were unraveling. I would hear shouting matches late at night, doors slamming, and even the occasional sound of objects being thrown. The tension in their household was palpable. I imagined the accusations and denials, the creeping doubt that must have eaten away at their marriage like a slow poison. Then the unexpected happened. One evening I saw flashing lights outside. A police cruiser had pulled up to their home. My wife and I watched from our porch as an officer knocked on their door. Raised voices followed, and within minutes, the husband was being escorted out in handcuffs. I don't know what the final straw was. Maybe it was the fake love letters. Maybe it was the inmates sending their responses. But whatever it was, it had done its job. The neighbors were officially in meltdown mode. A month later, a for sale sign appeared in their yard. They were leaving. The chaos I had orchestrated had driven them away, and peace would finally return to our home. I never confronted them about their sabotage attempts. I never told them I was behind the chaos that followed, but I took satisfaction in knowing that they faced their own kind of torment. I had fought back, not with violence, but with intelligence and precision. Eventually, the neighbors moved away, and my wife and I raised our child in the quiet countryside, free from the madness of our former adversaries. And while I never told this story to anyone before, I take comfort in knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, karma needs a little push, and I was more than happy to give it one.